We're back as we continue the debate between Martin Heinrich and Heather Wilson, the U.S. Senate debate. A lot of people are very worried about the deficit, whether they're Republicans or Democrat. It's now over $16 trillion. The national debt's over $16 trillion. The deficit last year was $1.1 trillion. At what point do we get to a tipping point where this thing can bring us all down, and what do we do to fix this and get together and make it work?
Well, it's going to be a huge problem when the cost of borrowing money goes up, and so we have to address the deficit. I think what's critical in how we do that is we can do it a couple of different ways. I believe that we should take a balanced approach, that we're going to have to weather cuts that we don't like. A lot of Democrats are going to have to stomach cuts that they're not going to be comfortable with. On the Republican side of the aisle, we're going to have to see some revenues come into place that weren't there before, that were there when we had a balanced budget, but are gone now. The alternative to that is to take the approach that my opponent has taken. Back when she was in the primary and speaking to the Tea Party, she endorsed this cut, cap, and balance Tea Party approach to balancing the budget. And the problem with that is that it would require deep cuts in programs like Social Security and Medicare. And it would be deeply problematic for a state like New Mexico that utilizes Pell Grants and has a large federal workforce. So my take on the cut, cap, and balance is anything that really threatens Social Security and Medicare, and I know a lot of people call them entitlements, but I really think that Social Security and Medicare are a promise, and we have to figure out how we can keep that promise, and the only way I can see to do that is to take a balanced approach, not just require all these cuts across the board.
On the morning of September 11th, we had a balanced budget and we paid off $450 billion of publicly held debt. The debt was going down, and the world changed. We were in a war, a national emergency, and a recession all at the same time. And we went into debt to save the republic. The mistake, and it was the mistake of both Republicans and Democrats, was in the mid to late 2000s, not getting back towards a balanced budget once the immediate crisis had passed. In 2004, I actually voted for a budget that, had we stuck to it, would get us back to balance in 2013, actually in next year. In 2007, I voted against the budget. I voted against it in 2008, and the deficit started to increase those 2 years. You came on board, and you have taken on more debt in the last 4 years than in the history of this republic from George Washington to 9/11. $5 trillion of debt.
We have two issues here. One is, how did we create the debt? The debt was created because the Congress, with Congresswoman Heather Wilson, chose to get rid of the rules that had helped constrain spending.
Did you vote for the debt?
Vote for
additional
spending in terms of entitlements, additional spending in terms of new two wars that were completely deficit financed, unlike any other time in our history.
That's incorrect.
And two new tax breaks. But looking forward, at this point, we have to fix it. The question is, how do we fix it? And I'm saying we have to take a balanced approach that is fair to the middle class, that's not punitive to Social Security and Medicare, and we have to come up with something that brings the deficit down.
The most important thing that's not a gimmick with respect to the budget, because you voted to waive the pay-go rules 11 times in your first 19 months in the Congress. They're not rules if you yourself can waive them when you want to spend money. The real effective way to control and get back to a balanced budget is a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, and you voted against that. Well, let me ask you this: did you vote for those budgets for trillion-dollar deficits?
Then you wouldn't have been able to take on debt the day after September 11th.
Actually,
so
no.
So it's a little ironic
incorrect.
to say, it was okay for us to blow up the deficit when we were in a time of war, but it's not okay in the future. The balanced budget amendment
has an exemption
for war. The problem with it is they have no exceptions for how to deal with Social Security and really how to figure out how to be more flexible in times of recession or war.
Let's go on to Social Security and
Medicare,
but a final word on the deficit.
I do have to correct this. The balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, which I supported, which I actually co-sponsored and voted for at one time, accepts war, recession, and national emergency, which is a responsible thing to do. But you voted for trillion-dollar deficits and you continue to vote for trillion-dollar deficits as far as the eye can see. We spend more on interest on the debt every year than we spend on Medicare.
Right. Each quick final word on this, on the deficit.
Well, I just find it ironic that Congresswoman Wilson is selling herself as the solution to a problem that she helped to create. But more importantly, I think we need to look forward, and there couldn't be a starker contrast in terms of how to move forward. It's either cut, cap, and balance with Congresswoman Wilson, which will be deeply destructive to Social Security and Medicare, or take a balanced approach, which is something I support and I think most New Mexicans support.
No, there is a big difference between us. I think we need to control spending. I think we need economic growth. I think we need a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. Your increases in taxes, take it all. Take every penny that every small business and every person earns over $200,000 this year. Not a 5% increase like you're talking about. Take every bit of it, and you only cover the deficit for 1 year. You can't do it. You have to control spending.
Let's go to something else people are very concerned about. Two things, actually, Social Security and Medicare. A lot of problems with their financing. A lot of people who are on Social Security and Medicare are worried about what the changes mean. First of all, whatever changes you individually might favor in those programs, would they affect the people who are now on those programs?
Absolutely not. I really view Social Security and Medicare as a promise, and a promise that I intend to keep. We're going to fight hard to protect Medicare, protect Social Security. We have heard time and time again from organizations around the country about how dangerous the cut, cap, and balance approach is to Social Security and Medicare. And don't trust me. Go out and do your own research. Go to YouTube and type in Heather Wilson, cut, cap, and balance. You'll see her endorsing this plan, and then go to places like AARP or the Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare and see what they have to say about that.
All right. Whatever you would do as a senator, would it affect the people who are currently on the program?
No. I think the most important thing with Social Security is to make sure that the check is there on time and in full for those who are depending on Social Security today. Congressman, I know what it's like to be on Social Security. This is my Social Security card. And I remember the day my mom asked me to sign it. I don't have to ask my parents or my neighbors what it's like to be on Social Security. And I know that these safety net programs matter to people because I lived that. So I think the most important thing is that the check is there for those who are dependent on Social Security today.
All right. What about changes for people who are not on the program yet but will be coming soon or down the road? Go ahead, start that, Ms. Mason.
I think when we look forward, we know that we've got problems with Social Security. So what do we need to do? In 1983, Ronald Reagan, as President of the United States, and Daniel Patrick Moynihan and Tip O'Neill came together and they extended the solvency of Social Security without tearing this country apart. I think we need that kind of bipartisan approach again, so that we can save Social Security for future generations. Now, there are a number of plans out there that can serve as the basis for doing so, whether it's Simpson-Bowles or Domenici-Rivlin, but you've got to do a bipartisan approach, and you have to start soon. At least all of the Social Security actuaries suggest that you do.
Well, I would agree that any changes, frankly, need to be bipartisan, but I think it's completely wrong to blame Social Security for a budget deficit that was not created by Social Security. This budget deficit was created by the things that I outlined. 2 sets of Bush tax cuts that were completely unpaid for, a prescription drug plan that is a great plan, but it was put entirely on a credit card, 2 wars that we're still paying for. So to blame Social Security for the things that created the budget deficit, it just doesn't seem right to be able to say that somehow the people on Social Security that the budget should be balanced on their backs. I can't support
I don't think
that.
anyone is saying that, and as you know, Social Security is a separate account from the operational accounts in the federal budget. Everybody sees on their check this amount that's taken out for Social Security tax, and the program is operated separately. The problem is that starting 2 years ago, more money is going out in Social Security payments than is coming in Social Security revenue from people's checks. And that'll start to draw down the trust fund. Unless we make some changes, unless we save Social Security, people are going to go into the Social Security office or to their mailbox in 2033, 2036, And under current law,
So
there will be only
what would
three
what
quarters
changes
of the
are you
benefits.
suggesting?
What I was saying was that your point about the balanced budget doesn't affect Social Security. They are completely separate budget
So
items.
what changes are you suggesting to Social Security?
I am saying that we need a bipartisan approach, much as we did in 1983 with Daniel Patrick Moynihan and Ronald Reagan. I'm sure Ronald Reagan didn't get everything he wanted.
That's interesting you
Neither
say
did-
the bipartisan approach, because people don't believe that Washington can fix things. They don't, Social Security, Medicare, and candidates always talk about the bipartisan approach. But when we get into the nitty gritty of it, it's always hardline political decisions. As a senator, what would you promise us about your efforts to compromise and reach reasonable solutions?
Well, I would just point to places where I've been able to work across the aisle in the past. And, you know, this has been rated the least productive Congress in probably the last 50 years. But I was able to pass legislation that deeply impacts our economy right here in New Mexico. I passed a bill that makes it easier to build homes, to get a mortgage, to start small businesses on tribal trust land. And I could only do that because I worked closely with Republicans. Republicans like Don Young of Alaska, who we don't agree on everything, but when you get to know the people on your committees and you're open to the idea that it's your job to produce some results, you can get things done even in this very partisan environment.
And what amazes me about that example is that that bill passed 400 to 0. And I would have supported it if I was there too. But it's hardly demonstrating independence if the only time you're bipartisan is when everyone completely agrees. But I'll tell you what independence is. Independence is when you stand up to the Speaker of the House, as I did as a freshman, and force him to pull a bill from the floor that would have impacted our lives. Independence is voting against an education bill that would have cut education and being the only Republican to do so. It's voting to override the veto of the children's health insurance program that President Bush didn't agree with me on. Those are the kinds of things that demonstrate true independence, not a bill that passes 400 to 0.
Well, it's ironic because we couldn't get that bill through the previous Congress. This time we were able to pull together to get it done. But I wish that Congresswoman Wilson would have shown that same sort of independence when the Ryan budget was rolled out. And every news station in New Mexico was carrying stories about how deeply destructive it was to Los Alamos in particular, and Sandia. I was willing to step up, and when my president suggested defunding some of the facilities at Los Alamos, I opposed my president. I said, you know, I voted to restore funding for the CMRR program. I wish that Congresswoman Wilson would have shown that same sort of independence when we were trying to fight off the budget cuts from the Ryan
Congressman,
budget.
this isn't news, but I actually voted against Paul Ryan's budget in 2007 when I was in the Congress. And with respect to Los Alamos, they just laid off 700 people, and you just voted for the continuing resolution that ended the funding for the program that you failed to stand up and fight for. We lost the tacos because you didn't stand up and fight for them either.
We're not going to. The tacos. When I walked into
Tacos,
office,
the Air Guard. We're talking
Air
about
Guard.
the
the
next
150th Air Guard here at Kirtland Air Force Base. When I walked into office, I walked into a crisis because Congresswoman Wilson hadn't done her homework and hadn't found them a new mission. We jumped on it. It was the middle of a
Congressman
a
Heinrich, they had a
complete-
mission, and it was after you arrived
No.
that the Air Force pulled the mission,
Right.
and you failed to stand up and fight
We
for
stood
it.
up and found them a new mission, and if Congresswoman Wilson had done a little more homework when she was actually in office, we wouldn't have been in that crisis in the first place.
You need to go back and look at your dates. You were in Congress when the Air Force proposed to move those F-16s, and
People
you announced.
had known
you
for
announced.
months
Let me finish
that
this.
that
Let me
the
finish.
F-16s were.
Let me finish this. You announced that the loss of the F-16s was actually a good thing.
That's not correct.
And it was actually in an interview here on Channel 13. You described it as avoiding a death sentence. It would have been a death sentence
Well,
if
we
we
did
kept the
avoid a
F-16s.
death sentence because I stepped up and found the tacos a new mission.
No.
Right.
And I've
You
talked
said
to
we
many
avoided-
people in that Air National Guard
Let me-
unit
let me-
who are
let me go-
deeply appreciative of the leadership that
You know,
we
the
showed.
Vermont National Guard is very happy to have our F-16s.
Right,
and I know
obviously,
the guys
there's a
in the
sharp
Vermont National
disagreement here.
Guard.
Let me talk about the labs, because that just came up. Now, traditionally, one of the major roles of the New Mexico congressional delegation has been to support the labs, their mission, and their funding. The labs are looking at some big cuts right now. As a senator, what would you do to protect the labs, not only for the state, but because they're a national treasure too? Ms. Wilson.
Well, first things, we have to support the mission, and the core mission is a national security mission at the national laboratories. They're responsible for making sure that our nuclear deterrent is safe, secure, and reliable in the absence of nuclear testing. They also have other missions that are surrounding and come off of that, countering the nuclear threat, for example, energy work and so forth. But you've got to keep those facilities and missions strong. Secondly, I think we need to change some of the governance and way these labs are operated, because frankly, I think that some of the rules and changes that we made have not been effectively implemented by the Department of Energy and NNSA. And thirdly, we don't get enough technology transferred out of those labs. But Congressman Heinrich, we just lost a plutonium facility that will mean 1,000 jobs for 10 years, the largest construction project in the state, in northern New Mexico over the next decade. And you weren't even at some of the hearings to consider this. You were absent without leave.
First off, there aren't a lot of engineers in Congress, and it is a very, it's a perspective that I can tell you my colleagues could appreciate a lot more. There are actually no engineers in the U.S. Senate. I understand what people do at the national laboratories. I get it, and I've never, there's nothing I've fought for as hard as the jobs at our national labs. What is important to being able to protect those labs, especially in this time of fiscal challenge, is to be able to show to the rest of the country that doesn't necessarily get it just how important those labs are. It's not just about the nuclear mission. I was in Afghanistan a couple of years ago, and with my colleagues got to see technologies that were saving lives in theater that were developed right here at Sandia National Labs. When you can show your colleagues just what it means to a warfighter to have some of this technology, it changes people's perspectives. And we need a diverse national security lab mindset that says we're going to be like Kirtland Air Force Base. Kirtland was almost bracked back in the 1990s. The reason it's alive and thriving today is because it's so diverse. We need to follow that same model within our national labs.
Quick final word on the labs.
I think we need a United States Senator who will stand up and fight for our national labs. I've worked with our national labs for 20 years. In fact, the same day that Jeff Bingaman announced his retirement, I was offered the vice presidency at Sandia for the very programs that you talk about. I understand the labs and their needs, and they need somebody who will stand up and fight for them. You voted for the deficit, the debt bill and debt commission bill that has led to us being at, having 20,000 jobs at risk next year. 20,000 jobs, and you have to take responsibility for that.
I voted to make sure we didn't default on our debt and send the entire world into a second recession. I don't support sequestration. I do support our labs, and I will continue to support our labs. And I wish when we were fighting off the ravages of the Ryan budget on our national labs right here in New Mexico, that I could have had an ally in Heather Wilson instead of watching as she ran from that budget for over a year.
I voted against the budget in 2007, and the budget does not cut the labs.
All right, we'll be back with more right after this.